Behind the headlines. The transition to adulthood. For most young people, it's a rite of passage to celebrate. But for foster youth, it's called aging out. It's unfortunately a time when youngsters who were never adopted or reunited with their families face challenges most Americans will never know.
If you bounce around home to home, then you're never going to know how to function like other kids do or other adults.
At the age of 14, after repeat problems at home, Abby Walthall became a ward of the state.
I would run away and come back a couple days later and nothing would really change. And finally, the last time I ran away, my parents got fed up and called the police and everything. So Child Protective Services got involved. And they tried to do family preservation. They tried to intervene, but things just got even worse. My mom didn't hit me after that, but the verbal abuse got a lot worse. So for 5 months, that happened. And then one day, she snapped and she hit me again. So they took me out of the house that night.
Abby was sent to a group home, then a temporary foster care home. Next, she lived with her aunt and uncle. When that didn't work, she went back to a group home, then another group home. During those years, Abby attended 6 different high schools. It's a typical foster care scenario that makes building close, caring relationships with adults difficult, if not impossible.
Do I still talk to my foster parents? I don't really talk to any of them. Even my own aunt and uncle, I barely speak to them. And then my family didn't know how to deal with the whole situation, so they stopped talking to me. I was actually disowned from the family for 3 years, and that happens to a lot of foster kids.
When Abby turned 18, the age is 21 in some states, she aged out of foster care.
Just imagine you're a young person, 17, 18 years of age. You've been in foster care for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You're not going back home to be with your parents in an abusive or neglectful situation. You haven't been adopted. And you're being told that within a number of months, you're going to be living on your own. What's that experience like? Are you prepared for the living in an apartment? Can you balance your own checkbook? Do you have a job? Do you have transportation? Do you have medical insurance? These are tremendous challenges for kids in the best of circumstances.
Some 20,000 young Americans age out of foster care each year. Studies show more than half have not graduated from high school. 1 in 8 graduates from a 4-year college. 56% are unemployed. 27% of young men end up in jail. Some studies show 60% of the women are pregnant within 2 years. Many experience homelessness at least once after leaving foster care.
Aging out of foster care it's a unique situation where you're 18, you're young, and overnight you're on your own. We don't do that to our own children. It's a crisis when you're 18 and told sink or swim, fend for yourself.
Eileen McCaffrey runs the Orphan Foundation of America. It's an organization helping move those who age out of foster care from risky situations to supportive ones by offering scholarships, internships, mentoring, and by sending care packages to children without families.
We believe, of course, money gets you in school, but a mentor will keep you in school or will help you make good choices along the way. Remember them. They need opportunities.
Some internships bring these young people to the nation's capital, where they speak directly to lawmakers to explain their needs.
There should be some type of exit counseling that you should take when you're coming out of high school, as far as career alternatives that you could either go to service or college or on to work.
Others aging out join independent living programs, especially needed by those who've lost touch with their biological families. Through one such program, Abby moved in with a woman who helped guide her into young adulthood.
They try to teach you about different things in the real world, like she helped me open a bank account and taught me how to ride the bus and things like that. And I got a stipend every month, and I had to take some of that to pay her rent.
But independent living programs are not universal.
Which is probably why so many wind up on the street and jobless and pregnant. When I first heard that it wasn't a national thing, I couldn't believe that. Like when I heard stories about kids who had to finish high school out of a car because they turned 18 in December and they were just kicked out.
Congress funds the John Chafee Foster Care Independence Program, named for the late Rhode Island senator. The program also now offers a stipend to those aging out until age 23. Some get up to $5,000 a year for tuition and training. Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu, an advocate for foster care reform and adoption, says the system needs a major overhaul.
It really is awful that we would have any kind of system in the United States of America that would legally separate children from parents and then not connect them to other parents.
Landrieu says foster care funding is inflexible and counterproductive because the money doesn't follow the children. Instead, it supports the system. She's working to change that.
It really is promoting a system of children in foster care in limbo, basically. I mean, right now, if a child's adopted, most funding stops. Right now, if a child is adopted out of foster care, there's no guarantee that they would get help with college tuition. So we are trying to eliminate the barriers to adoption.
Creating lifelong family connections is the best outcome for people in foster care. Abby wasn't adopted or reunited with her biological family, but she beat the odds because her county provides more services than most. Using money she earned, a subsidized apartment, and federal tuition and living support, she graduated from college and is attending graduate school.
For a lot of people, they look at these kids and say, okay, so they're headed to some negative outcome. And what I'd like people to understand is that they are just like our own children. And if we give them that love and the opportunity for some meaning in their life and hope for the future, they'll make it.
When you hear the statistics about how many of these kids end up pregnant, in jail, 18 years old, out in the street, living in a car or in the street, what's the solution?
This is a travesty beyond words. I mean, I think there's a two-pronged solution. One, I agree with Mary Landrieu. The money needs to follow the children, but most importantly, one of the things that people should realize in watching this and discussing this issue is that the only organizations that are actually handling this in a semi-appropriate fashion have nothing to do with government. We need to get this program out of the government and put it into the hands of people that actually know what they're doing.
Well, these children have been in the hands, quote, of parents, of foster parents. So they've not been in the government's hands. They have, in fact, what we're doing that's rigid is adhering strictly to the, quote, age of majority. And these kids age not out, they age into jail, they age into pregnancy, they age into what your kids and mine would age into given no supervision after they are 18. It seems to me what has to be done is to tailor a child's transition. Some of these kids are ready to go into the service, are ready to go into school, but you have to do for foster children all kinds of individual tailoring while they are under the care
Well, what about
of
Abby's
parent.
one profiled in this piece? I mean, she made it because she had a quote-unquote adult tutor, meaning teaching her into adulthood, and she's in graduate school now. She had stipends for all that.
And this is a great savings for society. So, I mean, what a great investment. Anyone in social sciences will tell you, if you can put the resources at an at-risk population, you're going to return on your investment will be very great. And this is by definition an at-risk population. Kids who have not been connected to a family, haven't had the benefit of that. Now at 18, when they can't get a beer, you know, we think they're too young to be able to drink, and yet we think they're old enough to handle life.
All right, that's it for this edition of To the Contrary. Next week, Phyllis Schlafly and Grassroots Conservatism. Whether your views are in agreement or to the contrary, please join us next time.
Funding for To the Contrary provided by
the Marguerite Casey Foundation Endowment on PBS's To the Contrary seeks to strengthen the voices of low-income families across the United States and engage parents to improve the economic and social well-being of their communities.
Additional funding provided by the E. Rhodes and Leona B. Carpenter Foundation, the Jacob and Valeria Langoloff Foundation, the Peter J. Sharp Foundation, the Wallace Genetic Foundation, the Charles A. Freehoff Foundation, and by the Henry H. Kessler Foundation. For videotapes of To the Contrary, please contact Federal News Service at 1-888-343-1940.
We are PBS.